As I'm preparing to go live with you, they had the developments that are pretty concerning when it comes to Iran. There were explosions reported in, let me see exactly where.
Karg?
Bandar Abbas. Karg, there were fires there, no explosions. There's satellite images showing potential fires, unconfirmed, and we're not saying there's strikes, and we don't know if there's actually fires, but there's been multiple reports of fires with satellite imagery. But this satellite imagery is hard to dissect. Then there's been reports of explosions in Bandar Abbas and around that area. Air defenses were activated, and then there's reports that the IRGC shot down multiple American drones, including a Reaper drone, at least one. And then we got information from Iranian sources that the US shot at two IRGC Navy speedboats, killing four IRGC members on board. And that's where we're at right now. We don't know what exactly that clash between the US and Iran was. It's quiet as of the last few minutes, unless something just happened or nothing. It's been quiet in the last half an hour to an hour, but that happened in the last couple of hours. And that's where we're at. So very volatile, a lot of moving pieces. Right. And then Barak...
This was streamed 2 hours ago, so this is pretty much the latest news.
Barak David, last two quick updates. Barak David just posted now why it matters. This comment seems to signal a softening. And okay, so Trump posted, that's important. Trump posted that the uranium now will either be immediately turned over for the US to be brought home or destroyed, or preferably in conjunction coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran, destroyed in a place or at another acceptable location with the Atomic Energy Commission. So essentially, Trump conceded on Iran sending the enriched uranium somewhere else, and then Barak David saying this is the US softening their position regarding the enriched uranium stockpiles, which is a positive development when it comes to a deal. So there's a lot there, Larry. Some of it good, some of it bad. My position is that the war's still over, and I think a deal is imminent. But obviously, a lot of indicators pointing in a completely different direction. What do you make of all this?
I think the war might be over, but I think we're nowhere near a deal, is my personal position. I might be wrong, though. We can see.
There will be no deal. Iran is firm on its position. Lifting of the sanctions, unfreezing of the assets. Well, now, part of the problem with the unfreezing the assets is it depends. I'm not sure what percentage of those were frozen because of the actions of a U.S. president through executive order, and what percentage were frozen through actions of the U.S. Congress. Sanctions passed by U.S. Congress cannot be circumvented by the president. So that would be an issue for negotiation. And on that issue, Iran might be willing to show some flexibility. But they're showing no flexibility with respect to Lebanon and the ending of the fighting in Lebanon and the fighting against the Palestinians. Instead, Israel's ramping up. Israel's basically telling Trump, go fuck yourself. We're gonna do whatever we want. But what are you going to do about it? Well, what Trump could do about it is pull the plug on him completely. But Trump is, as I said yesterday with you, got 250 million reasons.
He can't pull the plug on Israel politically, or at least he's not ready to do that yet. A lot more pressure needs to be put on Trump.
That's why he's going to be succumbing to what the Zionists want. So, these are, there are lots of issues that are out there on the table. You're correct that these could, in a normal, rational universe, there could be a negotiated settlement. But we're not living in a normal, rational universe. We're living in Zion land, and where the Zionists reign supreme. They control Trump, pure and simple. They control the American Congress.
They have huge influence over American Congress and huge influence over Trump. They do not absolutely control him, but it would be very costly for Trump to capitulate in Iran, and so I don't think he can do it.
Congress. Anybody had doubts about that? Just look at what happened to Thomas Massie, a Republican congressman who had been overwhelmingly popular in his district, and the Zionist money came in, targeted him, took him out. If the United States did that in a foreign country, we'd be calling that a coup. So this is the shooting that's now taking place with downing the drones. Those drones they're not out doing recreational flying. They're out doing targeting, collection, information that's going to be put into packages so that the United States can attack Iran again. And Iran's just saying, no, we're not going to mess around. They shut them down. Now, if they really did shoot at those Iranian gunboats, then I would anticipate Iran's going to start firing anti-ship missiles at the ships that are 200 miles offshore, because now they can, with the Chinese missiles, they can reach them.
Just got a report. U.S. Air Force Boeing KC-46A Pegasus air refueling tanker departed Tel Aviv, heading towards the Persian Gulf at 24,500 feet. The tanker is positioning to potentially refuel strike aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
So I thought we'd hold off till Friday. Looks like you're cooking off now.
I hope it's limited. A bit of similar to what we saw after Operation Freedom. Just limited.
I love it. Limited. As I said, the pregnancy. I hope it's limited. Dude, you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. There's no limited in this. That's like with war. You're full on or you're not on. The little bitty pinpricks here. It's just that's how a whole fire starts.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the worry is that...
As of right now, I'm not reading anything about airstrikes in Iran.
One thing, the escalation trap, one thing leads to another and it escalates. But the Operation Freedom de-escalated relatively quickly, the clashes they had there.
Wait, no, take that back. U.S. strikes Iran south, Tehran officials in Qatar for talks. So U.S. did strike. United States forces say they have attacked missile launch sites and mine-laying vessels in southern Iran in what U.S. spokesman described as a self-defense strikes. Yes, self-defense strike. No, it's not self-defense strike. When you launch bombs into another country, that's offense.
So that's what I'm hoping happens. Obviously, everyone's hoping that happens, except the guys in Israel.
So the explosions in Iran were, in fact, a U.S. attack. So, yes, the war's getting back on.
Where do we start? Let's go into the... Before we talk into Lebanon and the strikes that are happening right now, because that's developing as we speak, there is a positive development. Trump did post that he's happy the enriched uranium goes out of the country. Al Jazeera reported, so I'm not the only one that says this. Al Jazeera
Yeah, but that was before you decided to bomb Iran, Trump.
reported as well that Qatar has managed to find a breakthrough when it comes to the unfreezing of assets. And the last sticking point, the giving up the unfreezing of assets, the enriched uranium. Trump posted about unfreezing of assets
And sanctions.
This Hormuz. And the sanctions has been reports that the US is willing to lift the sanctions on the oil, Iranians' ability to sell the oil, which they've done before. So I think that's digestible. They've done it before. The Hormuz Straits, Iran's already talking about charging what is called, like, we're not going to charge a toll, we're going to charge, I can't remember the statement, I can get you the exact statement.
U.S. launches self-defense strikes near Hormuz, killing several Iranian personnel. Iran has reportedly lifted its nationwide internet ban after nearly 90 days. Israel dramatically ramps up war and bombing of Lebanon, citing Hezbollah drones on its territory. Yeah.
They said it earlier today. So Iran's already started rebranding it.
How about resort fee?
result fee. They called it, I think, an environmental fee. I think that's what they called it.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like the casinos in Vegas, they now charge a resort fee, also known as a toll.
There it goes. It is natural. So that's the foreign ministry today. It is natural that in this process, the services provided, navigation services, in addition to the necessary measures to protect the environment of the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, and the Sea of Oman, these require the collection of fees. Therefore, they should not be referred as tolls. Iran and Oman are responsibly working on this path and hope to reach a final agreement as soon as possible. So they've today is the first time they've changed it away from calling it tolls. So if we put these together, they are good indicators. Iran not calling it tolls. Trump just agreed not to send the enriched uranium to the US. And Qatar saying, according to Al Jazeera, which is owned by Qatar, saying that we have a solution for the unfreezing of assets. There is reasons to be hopeful.
Yeah, let's see what Iranian sources report on enriched uranium. If they corroborate an Al Jazeera report, then okay, fine. I'd say okay, we can trust that. But Western leaks that are designed to shape a narrative, I always withhold judgment.
Yeah, so there hasn't been any Iranian reporting on the enriched uranium that said they don't want to send it anywhere. I think I saw a report today about sending it to China.
Well, and they've talked about sending it to Russia. I've heard possibly Pakistan.
There you go. So there are options, and if Trump is allowing it to go somewhere else, there's room to be. According to sources cited by Al Arabiya, so that's Saudi. Iran is seeking guarantees from China. Iran is seeking guarantees from China before proceeding with a deal to end the war with the US, and is demanding some of its highly enriched uranium to be transferred to China rather than the US. So that's according to Al Arabiya. And now we have Trump saying, "Oh yeah, it can go somewhere else."
If
That's good.
If that's true, that means China's involved with these negotiations, and that's positive.
Positive there. Obviously, putting the strikes, the explosions that are happening right now, that just happened aside, which we'll talk about in a second. I'll update you.
Yes, those explosions are very relevant, and I don't think they're good for doing a deal.
But if Al Arabiya is saying Iran is happy, you'd agree Iran would send it to China, yeah?
I really could send it to China. I've also heard from someone connected with the Pakistani side that Pakistan has offered to take it, and Iran's entertaining that. But again, the whole uranium thing, that's just, again, that's a red herring. That's not what this is all about. If this is what it was all about, they would have settled this before the war started. This is about destroying the Islamic regime, and I don't see the United States or Israel backing off of that one bit. They're going to continue to insist upon that as an objective.
But Israel, yeah, but the US, they know they can't, Larry. Like you've talked about the depletion of the munitions for so long. They can't.
Oh, right.
They might want
No, I agree with you. They can't, but that doesn't mean they're going to give up on their fantasy.
Just look at Ukraine. Everyone's known they couldn't win against Russia in Ukraine, but they haven't given up on that at all.
Shit. Well, a second.
And look at Syria. They did the uprising, funded ISIS to overthrow Assad. Didn't work. They kept putting pressure year after year after year. 10 years later, they finally got Assad out. That's the goal with Iran, to continuous pressure until they crumble.
US, a second KC-46 just took off from Tel Aviv.
Yeah. So you figure they're capable of refueling 3 or 4 F-35s or F-16s or F-18s, whatever's in the area. So the air ops are now stepping up. If those tankers were flying out of Israel away from the region,
Iran is going to respond to these attacks. So kiss this agreement goodbye.
that'd be a good sign that, okay, U.S. is preparing to de-escalate, but it looks like it's heating up now.
Yeah, we did see it did heat up on Friday. Remember, we talked about how there were fighter jets and refueling tankers scrambled, but then they did not end up striking, which seemed either like a pressure tactic to have the Iranians concede while the Qataris were there, or to have Iran activate their air defense systems to try to locate them, preparing for future strikes. Maybe now they're trying to pressure Iran again, playing that game as they're negotiating again, or it's a preparation for something much bigger. We'll see. We're seeing it unfold live. Lebanon is a scary one. That was pretty.
Both times United States has attacked Iran so far, and now this third time, it was right when they were at the last stages of negotiation. So it would be just consistent with that for U.S. and Israel to attack again.
Went all out today, but they haven't started striking hard. They struck a bit hard this morning. They haven't started striking Beirut. So would you agree that in the next 24 hours, if we see massive... My assumption here is that they're doing the same thing as the last ceasefire, Larry. The ceasefire was imminent. Israel tried to cause as much damage as possible before having to abide to it, or partially abide to it. Could this be, again, the same thing here? If they feel a ceasefire, a deal could happen, they're trying to attack as much as possible before Trump forces them to stop?
Except
It won't work.
already have a ceasefire in place, supposedly.
We do.
Yeah, what's going on right now isn't supposed to be happening. So what Israel has shown, that ceasefire, they wipe their ass with it. They don't care. Ceasefire, Shemesh fire, it gives them, they're going to go ahead and blow the hell out of Lebanon. And it's frustration because they can't defeat Hezbollah on the ground. And Hezbollah continues to inflict significant casualties on Israeli defense forces that are on the ground. This is the only thing Israel's good at, bombing from the air. That's what cowards do. They don't have to go hand to hand, face to face. They can just drop it from 20,000, 30,000 feet and then fly home.
You could say the same about the U.S. military. We haven't exactly put boots on the ground in Iran.
They don't see the blood. They don't see the mayhem.
Yeah.
So and they blow up buildings, but the problem, so they destroy the buildings above ground. Hamas learned long ago, go below the earth. They do. And once they're below the earth, they're in there like a tick on a dog's butt. Israel can't get them out.
And it's important to remember, Iran closed their airspace from the 22nd till the 25th. So Iranian airspace right now is closed. It's empty. Just remember
it's now the 26th in Iran.
Yeah, 26 just started, so it's still clear. I'm just looking at it. It's just so the clearance ended today, but the airspace is still completely clear. So they closed their western airspace. Yes, but I'm looking at a map right now. I can show it to you, Mike. You can show it on screen. All right, Tasnim just put out a report here, Larry. Tasnim News says that an informed source has confirmed that progress has been made during the latest round of talks, with steps forward achieved. Iran is insisting that a portion of its frozen assets must be released as part of the process, continuing to cite a lack of trust in the U.S. and a desire to secure concrete, guaranteed outcomes. So that just came out from Tasnim. Give you a bit of hope if it comes from Tasnim?
No. When the deal is signed, both sides that we've agreed to all points, then I'll allow myself to entertain some hope. But right now, there are too many assassins lying in the bushes ready to sabotage the process, and Israel being the culprit number one.
Is it fair to say that even a deal is signed, this is just a one-pager MOU? Like, this doesn't mean much anyway. We're celebrating something very trivial.
Remember, there was this thing called the JCPOA. That was that was a signed agreement. And all Trump did is said, no, we don't recognize it. We tear it up and walked away. And, the narrative in the West was, oh, this was a terrible agreement. Now, I am no fan of Barack Obama. But if you go back and read that agreement, it was rock solid. If the objective of that agreement was to ensure that Iran did not develop a nuclear weapon. And instead of running with that victory, the neocons and the Zionists made sure they sabotaged it. Because they knew if that agreement was allowed to stand, then they couldn't get rid of Iran. They want to get rid of Iran.
They wouldn't have the justification to attack Iran if that agreement had stood. And Trump played into their hand by ripping up that agreement.
This is not about preventing Iran from getting a nuke. That is the excuse.
And Trump was just thinking he was doing a favor to the Israeli lobby by ripping out the agreement. He didn't realize they were setting the stage to trap him into an Iran war.
This is about eliminating the Islamic Republic. You can't have a government that's based upon genuine religious belief, because Israel is a false example of that. They claim to be a Jewish state, and they completely violate the tenets and principles of Judaism.
There's something that the Financial Times put out today, which is something we've discussed a lot. And by the way, the JCPOA point is really interesting. I said today in one of the interviews, I'm like, we're getting excited about this one-page MOU when an agreement that took a year and a half to finalize, that had hundreds of pages, was ripped up in an instant. And now we're thinking this one-page MOU is going to mean much. So we can celebrate this one-page MOU.
Yeah.
But long-term, not too many reasons to celebrate. The report from the Financial Times says Trump.
The only way for Iran to set up a real deterrent and to prevent itself from being attacked again is to hold the Straits of Hormuz closed 6 months, inflict catastrophic damage to the global economy, and so no one will ever want Iran to be attacked again. So they've done half of it, 3 months so far. They need to do another 3 months, and then I think after that the conflict will come to an end. The rest of the world will pressure Trump. He'll capitulate to Iran, and we'll be able to move on. Oil prices towards the end of the year will begin to come down.
Trump's military options to break the stalemate with Iran are risky, limited, and may ultimately benefit Iran, which has weathered 40 days of bombing without retreating and only hardened its position since, according to the Financial Times, cited by from airstrikes to naval operations, there is no easy way to force Iran back down, and new attacks risk dragging Washington into a costly quagmire. Iran has learned from American fighting methods, is rebuilding its damaged air defenses, and may have received weapons from China and Russia. It can strike U.S. forces with suicide drones in any new round of conflict. So, and also Iran shot down a drone this morning as well, and they said that was using some new air defense system they haven't used before,
Right.
and they shut down the drone as a warning sign. And now we have the reports that came in an hour ago that we were just talking about of multiple drones shut down. So I think it's important to take one factor into consideration, that Iran right now is very different than Iran before.
Yeah. They've been buttressed, strengthened. So they've really had a boost from China, from Russia, and they're prepared for the next round. I don't think the West is, because the West, it's not like you go out and build, let's build some more PAC-3 missiles. Hey, let's boost that production of Tomahawks.
No.
Sorry, boss, with those rare earth minerals we need out of China, we don't have those.
Yeah. All right, so I've got an update from CENTCOM here. Okay, so they've confirmed the strikes. CENTCOM spokesperson Captain Tim Hawkins told Fox News that U.S. forces carried out a self-defense strikes in southern Iran, targeting missile launch sites and Iranian boats allegedly attempting to place mines. Hawkins said the strikes were conducted to protect American troops, and the CENTCOM continues to defend our forces while using restraint during the ongoing ceasefire. What do you make of that statement? They said they're using restraint.
Nonsense.
Attacking missile launch site? Iran wasn't launching any missiles, so why do you need to attack that for self-defense? It's complete bullshit. It's just provocation.
The U.S. forces have no right to be there, number one. So it's like you break into somebody's house, they start shooting at you, and then you say, we had to shoot back because they were putting our lives at risk. You shouldn't enter their damn house in the first place. We used to believe in this thing called international law. Instead, the United States now reserves the right. We can break whatever law we want. If we decide you're an enemy, we can do whatever we want to you. We declare you a monster, we can kill you. Do we have to have any legal justification? Absolutely not.
There's another report here I want to get your thoughts on. Ynet reported that Israel may be left with 3 active fronts and tied hands. They said that that's a big thing. They said Trump lifting the naval blockade, he will make a joke of himself. And they called it a defeat and humiliation. So Israeli media is just taking a shit at Trump. I don't think that will, yield much results. Or one of my guesses, like Mario, they're trying to coax him back into the war. And then it says, with America's failure. Those cigars are kicking in, Larry.
No, I swallowed wrong.
Okay. With America's...
If Trump stays in the war and either escalates or at least doesn't sign an agreement, the media in the United States and Israel will continue to give him cover. And that will make he will continue for a while to be a viable U.S. president that actually has power. Until the summer, when gas prices go up and public support absolutely craters for this Iran war, then he's fucked. But for now, at least he'll still be a viable president. If he capitulates or escalates, his presidency comes to an end much faster. Escalation, if the oil infrastructure in the Gulf gets damaged, he's fucked. And if he capitulates, signs this agreement, that cover that mainstream media in the United States and Israel has been giving him, that gets gone. And, for example, Asmongold.
Nightbot.
Thanks for the lurk. And, for example, Asmongold, he's supporting this war is because he still believes mainstream media. Now, mainstream media starts telling Asmongold that we completely lost this war. It's a disaster for the United States. Well, Asmongold is going to turn against this war real soon because he's a mainstream media consumer. So that's why I say Trump can't sign a deal without his support cratering, media turning against him, and his presidency ending. So the only way he sort of like he can continue existing like a zombie if he does neither of those two things. If he doesn't escalate and he doesn't sign a deal for another maybe 2-3 months at most, he can pretend to be an actual U.S. president, then it's over.
This failure, Israel now faces its worst strategic situation in history. 3 active fronts, Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and no
Brains, yum.
room to maneuver. If Trump off-ramps, what happens to Israel? What happens to the 3-front war? Would they have to start winding down those wars as well?
Yes. All the United States has to do, excuse me, is pull the plug. They pull the plug on Israel. No more military aid, no more resupply of weapons. Israel's going to have to come to realization, okay, we got limited resources. We can't keep this up. We have to pull back.
Trump can't do that. Congress would override him. Israel still has too much control over Congress. He can't, just like he can't pull out of NATO.
Again, they've already, I think, they've suffered more casualties, more losses on the ground in Lebanon this go round compared to 2006. But again, we don't know that for sure, simply because the Israelis are doing everything they can to cover up the losses and sort of downplay it. Because I guarantee you, if the knowledge about those losses comes out, then the political reaction in Israel is going to be very severe.
You just have to look at all the videos of FPV drones that are being published by Hezbollah to get an idea of how catastrophic the losses are on the Israeli side. That's the thing about drone warfare. There's videos of everything.
Yeah. By the way, is that blackjack there? Or the lady?
No, they're both inside.
Oh, okay. By the way, if you have a meal, you can take a bite. Don't hesitate. You can always
No, that's all right. I can tell myself the cigar.
You can always have a meal on my show. Whenever you're hungry, you can always have a meal. What else do we have for you, Larry, to get your thoughts on? We have Channel 12. Iran's currently only willing to commit to not developing nuclear weapons, while the US is proposing several options. Disagreements remain. So Israeli media is a lot less optimistic. Iranian media is getting more optimistic than Israeli media. That's the first time that happens, because the Iranians are usually the ones the most hesitant. And I know this is the one you listen to the most. I'll always pay attention to that one the most. That's a big one, Larry. We haven't spoken about this. What do you? We had briefly yesterday. Trump doubled down on the Abraham Accords. Pretty quickly, Saudi said, no, our positions are unchanged. And Saudi made its position on Israel normalization clear. The same position as before. There needs to be an irreversible pathway to Palestinian statehood first before anything else. We review normalization. And then the Iranians take it a step further. The foreign ministry, within an hour of Trump's post, they say the Islamic Republic of Iran does not recognize Israel, in inverted commas, and never will. It is an illegal and occupying entity. Therefore, it is impossible to engage in diplomatic relations with their genocidal regime, which is the greatest source of instability and crimes against humanity in the region. It would be better for Iran. This is crazy. Listen to this. It would be better for Iran, which is a civilization that existed for thousands of years, to be martyred in its entirety rather than to engage in diplomatic relations or any other relations with the killer of Muslims. Shit. They literally said, we'd rather just die till the last man than normalize relations with Israel.
Yeah,
understandable.
There are these things called principles. Look, we've got the actual numbers. If Hezbollah or Hamas or name your Islamic group was killing tens of thousands of Israelis a year, we know the numbers. But that's not the fact. That's not the case. The 1,155, I believe, is the final number that were killed on October 7th. And of those, maybe as many as 40% were killed by the Israelis through their airstrikes on people fleeing the music festival. So this, in terms of who's killing who, the numbers pan out that it's the Israelis are killing far more Palestinians and Muslims and Christians than vice versa.
I got, while you're speaking, another refueling tanker just took off from Tel Aviv.
That's the third, right?
Yeah.
I
still think it'll be limited, Larry. I still think the war is over. I stand my ground.
Mario, you keep on saying that. You've been saying that for months.
I still want to be optimistic on this. CENTCOM in their statement just now, they did say they're trying to be restrained during the ceasefire. So it's kind of more the rhetoric of one that doesn't want to escalate.
We're being restrained during the ceasefire. We're only blowing up small boats.
Not only small boats. They're attacking missile launchers sites. So they're attacking the Iran mainland.
Sure,
they shot at air defenses as well. Missile silos as well. So not only small boats. Just to be clear.
Oh, okay. So they're going back after those missile silos that the Iranians have repaired.
Yeah, exactly. So they said that U.S. forces conducted strikes on missile launch sites and boats.
Explain that one to me. How do you repair missile silos that have been obliterated?
You're the Larry. You could explain it to me. But yeah, as I made the joke, it's just the entries, there were the rubble, they removed it, nothing was obliterated. And how, on Friday as well, the Air Force that was destroyed scrambled the fighter jet, two fighter jets, Iranian fighter jets. And CENTCOM already shot at boats as part of the Navy that totally sank. So in the last 2 days, we had Iran scramble fighter jets, CENTCOM shoot at boats and at missile silos, all meant to be destroyed.
Well, you
Yep.
mean Trump may have made some mistakes? Oh my goodness, how does that happen? Yeah, look, this, there's always a propaganda war on either side. Each side will put out their propaganda to make make themselves look the best and the other the worst. But there's no denying that, despite obliterating some of so-called obliterating some of Iran's capabilities, there are still aircraft flying, despite saying he defeated them all. And part of the reason for that is at the very start of the war, Iran flew a lot of its planes into Pakistan. They were sheltered and protected in Pakistan, and a number are in underground shelters. That they prepared for this for years. They're not going to leave them out in some above ground shelter because they know they're vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's the third refueling tanker taking off. The Abraham's Accords. Yeah. So on that question, and before you can explain your thoughts on Iran's response, but why is Trump mentioning them? Is that him trying to give Netanyahu something political to use back home?
Yeah,
The way I
exactly.
saw it is, yeah.
That's
He's trying to
exactly
get the war in Lebanon.
throw Bibi a bone. But it's not even Bibi, because I mentioned before, take Bibi out of the equation. The Israeli position vis-a-vis Palestinians and Lebanese have not changed, nor is it going to change as long as you have the Likudniks and their allies in government. They are firmly, unalterably, they believe from the river to the sea applies to them, not the Palestinians.
So I want to repeat what Smotrich and Ben Gvir said today, because that one is it's really upsetting. I'll read out the exact statements. Let me see where it is. It's crazy that Netanyahu is the one that's seen as the moderate here.
Yeah.
It is.
Why?
That tells you how crazy things are. When Bibi's
Exactly.
the moderate, oh my God.
Yeah. Smotrich it's not a public statement for him to get political points. It was during the security cabinet meeting. And Smotrich was advocating to level 10 buildings in Dahi and Beirut for every drone launched from Lebanon. And then Netanyahu pushed back saying, what do you mean? You're asking Israel should also destroy 10 buildings in Gaza or the West Bank or even Ramallah every time a drone is launched, including a criminal group inside Israel launching a drone. So even Netanyahu is telling him, how is that even a logical thing to do? But it is concerning if you take that along with Ben Gvir's statement that he should invade Beirut. Ben Gvir talks a lot of shit, but it's hard to dismiss them when 20 to 30% of Israelis have a favorable view of Ben Gvir.
Yeah.
You can't dismiss these statements anymore, Larry.
No, these are radical, these are extremist statements. And they act on those statements. So they've already acted on them, allowed rapes of prisoners because Ben Gvir said it's okay. There's, we talked before about how the extreme religious views end up really poisoning the well.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And even if some people start to worry that if Netanyahu is replaced, similar to Ali Khamenei, everyone's like, if you replace, don't kill Ali Khamenei because you might have someone that's more radical or more aggressive or anti-US, less willing to have a fatwa against nuclear weapons, maybe more willing to build nuclear weapons. All these things. The same thing might apply to Netanyahu. You get rid of Netanyahu, you might get someone even worse. That's a problem there.
Good night, Wyatt. And hope you had fun killing zombies. See you next time. Bye.
Yeah, so let's define, we use the terms radical this, radical that. So let's define exactly what we mean when we're saying radical. So from the standpoint of the Ben Gvir and the Smotrich, they do not accept Palestinians as human beings. They are subhuman. Untermensch, as the Germans used to call it. They are Amalek. They are people that God...
He's spitting facts. It's true. There is a portion of Israel which is like this.
according to their belief and their particular version of what they call a holy scripture, is that must be destroyed. Not just the men, the women, the children, the animals, just all destroyed. Now, that's not rhetoric. That's a belief. So I chalk that up to, that's extreme, ultimate extremism. You don't see yet on the Iranian side the same kind of kill every Jew. You don't hear that rhetoric. You don't hear that call. And in fact, in Iran, during the course of the war, we did see that when they were hit, they didn't retaliate by blowing up schools with children in it. They still, I think, within the tenets of Islam, believe killing non-combatants is a sin. So they focused upon economic targets, military targets, but shied away from going after civilian targets.
And they also announced their targets ahead of time, making sure that civilians could be evacuated. And that's why you didn't hear stories about dozens of civilians being killed by Iranian missiles and drones.
By and large. Otherwise, if they had, we'd be hearing about it. We'd see, Israel wouldn't be keeping that quiet. I mean,
Israel and U.S. don't extend a similar courtesy. When they bomb civilian targets, no warning. They just do it.
That'd be a perfect propaganda piece. See, these murderers are killing our children.
Before I respond to this, I have a quick update for you on the situation with the explosions in Iran. So CENTCOM said they attacked two boats, I think, and missile silos, Iranian missile silos. So Fox expanded now on the statement. 2 Iranian boats were caught laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Senior US official tells me. The US military eliminated both IRGC vessels and also struck a SAM, surface-to-air missile site in Bandar Abbas that was targeting US warplanes. Quote, these were defensive strikes. They do not indicate ceasefire is over, according to 2 well-placed sources. So that's why I'm a bit more optimistic on those.
Well, that's one way to spend it. But let's recognize that's what it is. It's spend.
Yeah, but I think the way they spin it indicates what their intention is. So like if they wanted a resumption of the war, they would make it to something a lot bigger, like more like they're the aggressor. Oh, maybe unless this is all a lie, unless they weren't even laying mines. Obviously, there's a possibility they weren't even laying mines, and that's still very very high,
Why would they be laying mines at this point in time?
very probable. Again, as a person, if I want to look at it from a lens of I think the ceasefire is near, I would say this is a pressure tactic. But we'll see what develops. There's three refueling tankers in the air right now. How long did they take to arrive from Israel to Iran? Do you know?
Well, you figure
An hour.
So these attacks that the explosions, like explosion in Iran, that's already happened. You now have 3 air refueling tankers having taken off, and they will be arriving in Iran right about now. So we should be hearing maybe about some more explosions in Iran soon.
a couple hours.
Yeah.
Hour and 40 minutes to get, but they'll get to an hour and 40 minutes to start refueling, because you figure any of the combat aircraft took off from Israel or from Jordan, and they're flying 300 miles an hour, 400 miles an hour. Well, if they're flying at 300 miles an hour, and I don't know offhand what the basic cruising speed is for the F-35. Well, in 1 hour, they've exceeded half of their fuel. So they only have a 550 mile radius. So, or if they're traveling 500 miles an hour, then they got to be refueled within an hour.
Could it also be a preemptive measure? Because obviously when there are strikes, they have to prepare in case things escalate. So they'll have the refueling tankers there ready. In case things escalate, then the fighter jets will take off for strikes and the tankers will be already in place.
Yeah, well, the fact that these tankers are taking off now means there's a lot, and you've got at least 3 tankers. So that's a significant number of. I don't know. That's an interesting question to ask. Check your check Grok. Ask Grok. Yeah, ask Grok. How many? And normally, how many F-35s does a KC-135 refuel? And how long does it take to refuel an F-35?
That's a good question. What's the answer?
I'll ask you now. So in terms of the preemptive side, do you think that's also a possibility? There's more. A KC-135 can typically refuel 6 to 15 F-35s in one mission. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Depending on how much.
Yes, because they're huge planes with a lot of fuel, and fighter jets are small in comparison. Of course, it was going to be a lot.
Much fuel each fighter needs. A max transferable fuel, 200,000 pounds. F-35 fuel offload per jet, usually 2,000 to 500 pounds per refueling. Top off for fighters. Simultaneous, 1 to 2 F-35s at a time, so in terms of refueling together. Time per refueling, 5 to 15 minutes per jets. A full mission sortie lasts 4 to 6 plus hours. In practice, 8 to 12 F-35 is a common realistic number for a standard fighter support mission. Okay,
so do the math.
That's significant, yeah.
So you're looking at least minimum 24 combat aircraft aloft. That's a significant number.
That's a very,
24 fighter jets heading towards Iran.
very valid point.
Well, so that's why I say always ask about the logistics. You know how many, because and the average speed of
Are you still optimistic about the ceasefire and this deal, Mario?
35.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at more updates on this. So just more reports of the statement by CENTCOM. They're going to get more defensive. Just going back on the developments. By the way, we're going to, just for the audience, one thing that Larry told me is that there's very significant developments happening in Russia, Ukraine, which I haven't been keeping track of. So we'll be going into that because that's very worrying. Larry was telling me, Mario, do you understand how bad this is, how significant it is? I said to Larry, tell me on the live stream.
Oh, yeah. On the Ukraine front, that's about to explode into a wider war, too.
About it with everyone else. So before we go to that, so we've talked about Israel, we've talked about Lebanon, the escalation that's happening. There's been quiet on the scene. There's the Kurds, there's 2 Kurdish leaders, but that's pretty irrelevant, talking that the regime should fall, but I kind of dismissed that as nothing. 2 Kurdish leaders just kind of making noise.
Right.
And interesting here, you talk a lot about China and Pakistan. You have a contact within the Pakistani government that you've mentioned a few times as a source. So Pakistani Prime Minister said this about Xi: China and Pakistan are 2 iron brother countries. This unique relationship is next to none. China is not only world-class economic power, it is also a military power meant for progress and peace in the world. So we have 3 reports of China today. This statement by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. We have reports that China supplied, manpads were used by Hezbollah to fire US Israeli fighter jets. So Hezbollah now is using manpads. And we have reports of China supplying significant weapons to Iran, and also reports that Iran is willing to potentially send its enriched uranium to China, according to Saudi news outlet. Behind the scenes, China seems to be playing a very significant role here.
Very much so.
Yep.
You know, this is a critical region for it economically, and as well as significant supply chains come out of there that China uses. And China is serious about building with Russia, building this new security architecture, which basically forces the United States out of the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
And that's where, you come back to Trump's demand that all the countries sign on to the Abraham Accord. Demanding that of these countries from Trump after he started a war, he didn't consult with them. He left them vulnerable and exposed, that they suffered significant physical damage, economic damage. So Trump's really not in any position to demand
And Israel is doing flattening villages in Lebanon.
anything in these countries. And just think in your own life, if you've got a friend or an acquaintance that's always demanding that you do what they tell you to do, you don't keep that friend very long.
Yeah. We're arriving to Ukraine now. There's one last piece of news in Europe that kind of links to Ukraine. According to DW, a new poll shows that a large majority of Germans now, and by the way, just for the audience, as we go through the updates here and the updates in Ukraine, which are extremely important, I think we'll do another episode soon, Larry, when Iran quiets down, just do a deep dive into Ukraine, because I do need to do a deeper dive there, because things are not looking that rosy. We'll give you updates on the Iranian, the explosions that happened. So what we know so far, there's been explosions in Iran, in Bandar Abbas, I think it was. Then we saw the air defense is active. Iran said they shot down American drones. CENTCOM did not admit to these drones being shot down, so just to be clear there, but that's...
Apparently, Iran has shot down 20% of America's Reaper drones. These are $1 million drones.
Kind of expected. Then we had reports of fire, satellite images of fire.
Totally 1 billion worth of Reaper drones.
In Kharg Island, but no explosions there, and the fires are unconfirmed. And then we got reports that 2 boats, Iranian boats, were shot down by CENTCOM, were shot by CENTCOM. And then we had a CENTCOM fired at Atlanta Air missile silo and the 2 boats that were laying mines, according to CENTCOM. That's the report. So these are the explosions. And while we're speaking, Larry, we had 3 refueling tankers, which we spoke about just now, take off from Israel. We'll see if that leads to anything there. So that's where the situation is at, along with the escalation in Lebanon. We'll share the updates as we get there. So DW is reporting that a large majority of Germans doubt that their military is able to defend the country in the event of a military attack. According to a survey, 17% of respondents said they believe Germany's armed forces could adequately defend the country, while 72% expressed doubt, about the military's readiness. And that's important because we've got situation escalating when it comes to Russia, Ukraine. We had a lot of talk, and there's a guy that we spoke about. It's coming on the show next week. I think his name is the one that was on Daniel Davis' show. I think this gentleman. He was. So he's coming on the show next week, and he put out a statement warning or advocating for Russia to strike manufacturing and warehousing capabilities. Sergei Karaganov. I think it's him.
Okay. Karaganov.
Yeah.
Karaganov. Yeah, I think he's the person that's coming on the show next week. I saw in one of our groups with the team. And he's
Sergei's a friend. He's a friend of mine.
Friend of yours. Yes. I remember you told me. So he's made those threats about striking NATO. That's why that poll in Germany shows you how unprepared NATO is, which obviously we know. And there's one statement that came in today that I mentioned to you before this, and you told me, Mario, do you understand the significance of it? So this is where I ask you, Larry, where Lavrov held a phone call with Secretary of State Rubio, during which he said Russian forces will be carrying out systemic strikes on military targets in Kiev. Lavrov also urged the U.S. to evacuate American diplomatic personnel from the Ukrainian capital, from Kiev. And you told me this is extremely significant.
Yeah.
I'd love you to explain what led to it and why is this so significant.
So people have been asking, why after 4 years is Russia now striking these targets? And the answer is the presence of U.S. and European officers, intelligence officers, military officers at command centers, at key government buildings, at key installations. And I believe Russia's decision not to strike prior to now was predicated on they didn't want to run the risk of killing a number of Westerners because they worried that might lead to an escalation. Now they don't care. Now
they don't care. Yep. Now there are many in Russia who think they should just attack NATO, the factories making drones in NATO that are being shot deep into Russia.
They're telling them, get out. This is not about, they're not going to be blowing up an embassy. They're going to be blowing up intelligence headquarters and branches of those headquarters, military planning facilities, any place where you would have CIA personnel located, U.S. military or NATO personnel located. Those are not going to be targeted. And they've been warned, if they don't get out, they're going to be killed. So now this is Russia is taking off the gloves. It's going to hit these sites that previously it did not hit because they didn't want to run the risk of killing Westerners. Now they are going to do so. Real simple.
So how bad do you think it would get there?
If you've got a vacation condo in Kiev, don't go to it. Yeah, no, it's going to get bad. Now the Russians
they've already started, but they're going to continue.
They're not going to be blowing up apartment buildings and pure civilian centers, but they are going to take out these military all of the military facilities. I believe there won't be a safe military or intelligence facility left. Anything that can be used for targeting and or the production of drones, because the West has now crossed the line. They provided the intelligence, the coordinates that were used to attack those girls in that school, and that has now crossed the line. And the West is, this is a way that Russia can attack.
Ukraine hit a dormitory at a college, killed a bunch of girls, and then it wasn't just one strike. They attacked once. Rescue workers went in. Second tap, rescuers tried to go in again. Then third tap. So this is 3 tapped a college dormitory. Russians are fed up.
The West without attacking physically inside Poland, Romania, Germany, France, or the UK. But
so you're saying they're going to attack Western assets and personnel inside Ukraine specifically?
Yes.
Shit.
That's better than them deciding to attack NATO directly. But it's just one step off from the decision to start bombing Lithuania, for example. So if the Europe tries to persist with these long-range drone attacks into Russia, yeah, it's just a matter of time, days, weeks, maybe at most, before Russia strikes NATO itself, NATO territory.
That's how I read it. And that answers the question, because I had to think about this for a bit. Because people say, well, why they hit it now? And the only explanation is they avoided it in the past because there were CIA officers there, there were NATO officers there. Now, have they hit other targets where there were Westerners? Yeah, but those were perhaps, let's call them mercenaries. But now we're talking about formal presence of people who are, hold diplomatic status. And if they are there in that city, and they're at any of those locations, they are going to be, they will wind up dead. And that's why Lavrov told Marco Rubio, better pull your people out. And that wasn't just about U.S. diplomats, the chargé d'affaires or the deputy chief of mission or the political counselor, the economic counselor.
No.
The consular affairs officer. No, this goes beyond that. This goes to CIA personnel and military personnel.
The ones doing the targeting for all the drones attacks into Russia.
Cool. So I had a guest on my show today for the first time. It was a new guest the team brought on. And let me see his name. His name was... It doesn't matter.
Who was it?
Mikhail Fisherman.
Mikhail Fisherman, okay.
Yeah, not sure if you know him. So he made so he's just kind of updating me on Ukraine, what's happening, because I haven't been keeping close. Now his argument, obviously, just to give you an idea, his position is very critical of Russia, pro-Ukrainian. So it's still he's coming from his
I'm
man.
shocked. Someone named Fisherman. So how could that be?
So his position is on why now. He tried to be objective, and he said, Mario, the reason now is that Russia is struggling to gain territory. It's been slow so far this year.
Oh, for God's sake. Are they still on that? Oh, for Pete's sake. Okay. They're really struggling.
So his position
We
is
can just look at a map of the war, and it's not true.
like,
It's the beginning of the year is always slow in Ukraine for terms of territory lost or taken, because it's winter and it's damn cold there, snow everywhere, and then the spring the snow melts and the ground gets incredibly muddy and it's impossible for vehicles to move anywhere, and it's a terrible time to try to wage war. And so the first few months of the year are always slow. Yet despite that, Russia has been moving forwards.
and Putin obviously needs Donetsk. There's no way of walking back Donetsk, and he's facing a lot of pressure to end the war. He talked about a think tank that's close to the Kremlin. I should have asked him for the name. That put out a report saying striking NATO may not be a good idea because then NATO will respond. You'll have missiles fired from NATO towards Russia, and then using a tactical nuke is not a good idea because then that puts Russia in a bad optically in a bad place on the international stage. And the drone strategy by Ukraine is making progress difficult on the ground. So they were advocating for some deal with Trump that includes giving up Donetsk, so something along those lines, but they don't know exactly how. But his position on why now, because he was trying to understand exactly why did Russia escalate now. And he said the reason is lack of progress. So I'd love you to respond to this, and I'll give you my assumption as well, but mine is very limited because I'm not keeping as close eye. What my assumption is that the munition, the stockpiles, the air defense munitions on the Ukrainian side are very low, Larry. So this is the perfect opportune moment for Putin to be able to strike Kiev with limited defense capabilities. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that point.
No, they could have gone after Kiev earlier, and Russia has tons of missiles. Even if there's air defense, you just double, triple number of missiles, and you'll hit your targets. So it wasn't because of Ukrainian air defenses that Russian held back. It was for other reasons.
Point is that Trump's Iran war depleted the munitions to such an extent that Ukraine is left more vulnerable than ever.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ukraine doesn't have, they're not getting any more PAC-3s, they're not getting more HIMARS. Exactly. Because the United States doesn't have any to give. But, the notion that, Russia is really slowed. This guy doesn't even look at a map. So last year, Russia was attacking basically along one axis. And that was in Donetsk.
Yeah, I like Mario's channel too, because he streams live towards the time where I stream, so I can get up-to-date news.
They weren't running any operations in Zaporizhia, or Kharkiv, or Sumy. They are now. They are in the process of encircling Sumy as we speak. They made important advances in and around Kharkiv, and they have continued. They finished eliminating all Ukrainian presence in Luhansk, and they've narrowed just into basically three major cities left on the far western side of Donetsk. Slavyansk, Kramatorsk are the two big ones.
They're part of that belt, are they? The Slavyansk and Kramatorsk?
Yeah.
The Donetsk belt. Is that the belt, the defensive belt that Ukraine has?
Yeah, that's the last defensive belt. Once those fall, and those will fall probably by August, if not sooner, then it's wide open to the Dnieper. So Russia, again, these artificial deadlines that the West keeps putting up, saying, "Oh, this proves how much Russia sucks." Okay, if we're using that as a standard, if Russia sucks, what does that say about the United States and its failure in Afghanistan? Complete failure in Afghanistan. And failure in Syria. So it's using a selective standard. Let's go back to the exchange of bodies every month. Every month, 1,000 dead Ukrainians are returned, and you get 37, 39 dead Russians, and that's been consistent now going back for 17 months. So
one reason for that is because Russia's advancing,
and Russia's got a lot more bodies to return than Ukraine does. And yet they've persisted with this fantasy that Russia's suffering these enormous losses and Ukraine somehow is gaining strength. I mean, these people are delusional, but they push the Western propaganda line for all they're worth. What has happened though is Russia's now they've, as of today, based upon Lavrov's call to Rubio, and it was signified by the attack on Kiev 2 days ago. Now this is entering a new phase, and targets that previously were off the table are now on, and they don't care if they're killing. They don't care if they're killing Westerners.
Would you agree with my my assumption on why now one of the reasons that played a role is the vulnerability of the Ukrainian air defense system because of Iran? Is that a fair assumption?
Oh, it's been vulnerable for more than 2 years. They really have had no effective air defense for 2 years, despite Ukraine. We shot down 90% of this. Nonsense. Just look at the numbers. What are they shooting them down with? They're certainly not shooting them down with PAC-3 missiles and the Patriot. They only received 1,000 of those PAC-3 missiles. Actually, less than that. And remember, you got to fire 2 of those against every inbound Russian missile. Just do a quick grok. Ask how many ballistic and cruise missiles has Russia fired into Ukraine since January 2025. The number I think is going to be more than 3,000.
And by the way, while we're speaking, Qatar, I forgot to tell you, Qatar refuted the claims that the state of Qatar offered $12 billion to Iran to ensure the conclusion of an agreement. The guy called them, I think the representative called them utterly baseless, and are being circulated by parties seeking to derail the agreement and undermine diplomatic effort aimed at de-escalating tensions and promoting stability in the region. It's Al Jazeera that reported it, funny enough. So who's saying this as the advisor to the Prime Minister of Qatar? Qatar's diplomatic efforts, which are conducted in coordination with regional partners, are well known and transparent, and these narratives are nothing more than desperate attempts to tarnish the reputation of the state of Qatar, a reliable international player in the pursuit of peace. So the idea of $12 billion being offered by Qatar to Iran are not true. To your question on what Grok says, 3,000 to 3,800 ballistic missiles and cruise missiles.
Okay, do the math. That means to shoot those down, you need 6,000 PAC-3s. How many did Ukraine get?
7,600.
Yeah, and how many did Ukraine get? Less than 1,000. So if they're shooting those down, what are they shooting them down with? Yeah, that's where you call bullshit. I just do math. I'm not great at math. I'm not a calculus guy, but I can do addition and subtraction and division and multiplication. Okay, I got those 4 down. Fair. If nothing else, I got a little calculator I could use. But I mean, those are the actual numbers. So so they great. They could take down 500 out of 3,600.
Most of Russia's missiles have gone through. In other words,
yeah. So maybe 15% that they shot down. What about the others?
No, I think that I think it's pretty common knowledge that Ukraine does not have the capacity to shoot down most of them. I don't know if they're claiming that they're shooting them down, which you said they are.
And we're not even talking the Joran drones. My heavens, there are thousands of those. 10,000, I would estimate.
Just give you an update on
probably more actually.
Iran. So these images there, you can zoom in on the image if you can, Mike. Satellite images show at least 60 IRGC Navy fast attack crafts just south of Iran's Larak Island in the Strait of Hormuz today, around the area of which 2 of the boats were struck by U.S. forces. So where the U.S. struck these 2 boats, now there's images showing at least 60 of them. It's heading around that region.
Well, that can't be right. That can't be right. Donald Trump told us they were obliterated. Their navy's all at the bottom of the Persian Gulf.
So we must be hallucinating. There must be UAPs now. These are UFO files.
Yeah.
I have an interesting question for you. What would you need to see? I asked you that already, but it's good to ask you again now. What would you need to see to get more optimistic on possible things changing on the ground in Iran? And I'll ask you the same question on Ukraine. Let's do Iran first. What would you need to see to be like, right, it's looking more positive now?
That all of these different claims that are coming out, they're coming from the Iranian side.
What I need to be optimistic is when I see coordinated pressure from the rest of the world on Trump to force him to capitulate to Iran. And we won't be there for probably at least another 2 months.
If Iran's saying, hey, yeah, we are close to an agreement. The United States is meeting our demands. So we've got some assurances on return of frozen assets and the lifting of sanctions and the shutdown of the war in Lebanon, as well as the United States has accepted our plan to charge resort fees, for,
Environmental fees.
environmental fees for transiting the Persian Gulf, transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, you see that? Then I'd say, okay, Iran's reporting it. I would give a lot of credence to that. But all the Western sources coming, the Western sources have been all over the board. There's not been any consistent theme. It's been lots of different claims that are always subsequently, debunked.
Oh man, a fourth refueling tanker now took off.
Okay, so now we're up to, so we were at 24, 8 times 3, 24. Now we're up to 8 times 32.
A fourth refueling tanker. Oh my God. And just because this was 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago now, and an hour into this, so 2 hours ago, yeah, something's going to be happening soon. It looks like the war might be back on.
So 32 combat aircraft in the air. That doesn't sound like a small defensive mission.
There's no reports of fighter jets being scrambled yet, like we saw on Friday. But what happened on Friday was the refueling tankers were scrambled, and then the fighter jets followed. So if fighter jets were to follow, we'll start getting reports of like people hearing in Syria, Iraq, or hearing of Israel later.
So again, if you got 4 of these flying out, now we're assuming that they're flying towards Iran. If they're flying the opposite. Okay, so that tells you right there that there's going to be, let's go with 6 as opposed to 8, the low number. So that's still at least 24 combat jets minimum. That you've got all these tankers ready to handle. So that that's not a small force.
Honestly, Larry, if this full war breaks out again, I promise you, I'd not only be surprised, it'd be a lot to digest. Because I understand that sometimes pragmatism does not, and we've told this many times, pragmatism does not always prevail. But there are certain
if pragmatism prevailed, this war would never have started.
limits to it, to use the word stupidity. And that line has been crossed a lot in the last few years.
But Asmongold's going to be happy. He wants Trump to bomb Iran again.
Most recently with the Iran war. But considering the circumstances there is now, what would happen to the Gulf, what would happen to the global economy, what would happen to the US munitions, obviously what would happen to Iran, what would happen to Lebanon, Israel. So all these different countries that no one will gain except China, but China would gain and lose. China would gain just by weakening the US. Russia would gain because the munitions are depleted further and the US is just...
Russia would gain if the oil infrastructure in the Gulf is depleted. As an oil exporter, it would gain. Israel would gain because the entire rest of the Gulf would be fucked and weakened without their oil.
Contracted further and oil prices are higher. But also one of the allies is getting struck. But beyond those, there's no one else gaining. It's just such a stupid war.
Israel gains. If the war resumes and all the oil infrastructure here goes offline, well, that makes all the rest of the Gulf weak. Israel doesn't produce oil. It'll get hit by Iran, but the devastation some of these countries will stop functioning without desalination plants and oil. Qatar is just a desert that no one can live in. So if you're actually erasing countries in the Middle East that are problems for Israel, Israel will come out stronger if it resumes. It's the only one that benefits.
And we know the outcome.
Yeah.
You don't have to be pro-Iranian or pro-American to really know that the objectives cannot be achieved. You've got the Kagan, whatever his name is, the neocon.
Robert Kagan.
Yeah, he said it himself in that piece on The Atlantic. He said, our objectives cannot be achieved. So when you've got the neocons that are pro-war, anti-Iranian regime, etc., when you've got them saying the objectives cannot be achieved, what's the point? Now, these are just a quick decapitation strike in order to get Iran to accept a deal. Well, Iran's made it clear. Any strike is going to go back to a Gulf war. They'll drag everyone into it, and there's not going to be a deal. And they've made it clear as well that coercion through military force does not work anymore. And I think they mean it. So that's why I'd be...
Mario, look at Ukraine. It's been obvious to anyone that Ukraine can never win against Russia. That hasn't stopped the West from just continuing on with the Ukraine war. And just try more things if it at first don't succeed. That is the entire method operandus of the U.S. hegemony over the world, is take out your enemies. If something doesn't work, try something else. Yeah, the entire Gulf might be sacrificed, but then, well, it'll be time to reevaluate and come out with the next strategy to attack Iran with. And just endlessly attack until Iran falls. That's what they did with Syria. It took 10 years from the start of funding the insurgency against the Assad regime to toppling the government. That's the goal now. The new project, Syria fell December 2024. So Syria was done. And then less than 6 months later, Israel bombs Iran. And less than 6 months after that, you have this Iran war. Well, Iran is the current project. Before the Syrian project is over, and it's going to be just try this, try that, try bomb them again, try to fund insurgency, just keep pressure until you take Iran out. That is the method operandus of the U.S. deep state. Whether this completely fucks over the world, that's a byproduct.
Really shook up, but also pretty surprised if we see full-blown war. Let's hope.
Well, yeah, no, I'm with you. I hope it doesn't go back to full tilt, because Iranian people will suffer, but Israeli people will suffer, and U.S. military assets will suffer. And again, it's one thing. It's one thing to get into a fight where you think, okay, we got a path to victory. Here's what we're going to do in order to win, but you don't have that. I had lunch today with.
Good point. They already got territory in Lebanon, Israel, so they already gained more ground of this. This is a territory right here that Israel took after toppling the Syrian government. So the Syrian project paid dividends, and now they're going after Lebanon, taking over this area here. Their goal is to take everything south of this river up here. So everything, this.
With a new friend, he just retired from as a military intelligence officer, and he was telling me that up until about a year ago, the United States, U.S. Intel was not using AI at all. They are now, and that can explain in part where you get into trouble, because AI is far from perfect. And
AI hallucinates. It gives you completely bullshit answers like 10% of the time. That's how we bomb a girls' school in Iran.
so you get garbage information in, you get garbage information out, and there's no attempt to verify it, to double check. So, okay, this is what the AI engine is telling us. Now let's look at, we can go to satellite imagery.
There's no point. The entire point of using AI is to save time. If you're going to have someone human verify it afterwards, why not have that human just do the targeting to begin with? So that's the problem. You have to start relying on AI, accept the 10% hallucinations, if that's what you want, 10% bombing girls' schools, or you use humans and don't bomb girls' schools. And that's more expensive.
We can do, we review intercepts out of the Persian Gulf. You do a variety of things to try to corroborate the information. That hasn't been done, because actually the volume of information that comes in as a result of AI is huge. And there's just a human tendency, oh, well, it must be accurate, let's go with it.
Yeah. And then the same question I'd ask you about Ukraine. What would you need to see to consider positive developments? And what would you expect to happen next? And I'm going to give you a quick my take here. I think Putin's best strategy is a waiting game. Obviously, he's facing significant pressure or some pressure back home, but also there's a lot of benefits to it. As there's that.
No, Mario, you don't understand. Waiting game isn't possible anymore. Not with the drone strikes that Ukraine is currently doing, because they're actually starting to do damage to the Russian economy, and it's not sustainable. So months, if you have all of Europe producing drones to shoot deep into Russia, and you have US guiding that, and these are striking valuable targets, and Russia can't allow that to continue. Russia loses if it does nothing, if it doesn't escalate.
That fracture between Europe and Trump, but also European leaders, new leaders coming up, they understand the bad situation Europe is in. They need Russian energy. They need an end to the war. They need to stop sending funds to Ukraine. So the new leaders that are getting the votes, like IF.
Yes, but another year of what's going on currently, and Russia loses the war because all its factories, all its oil infrastructure is destroyed. Because at the current rate, another 12 months of these huge, deep strikes into Russia by all these drones, and it's every time more damage is being done that can be repaired quickly. And so damage builds up over time. It's not bad now. It's, what was it, like 10 to 15% offline of the energy infrastructure. But if it continues, it'll go up to 20, 25, 30, and it'll be unsustainable. So Russia needs to escalate. It's in that position now. There's no option, like you're saying, Mario, to wait.
They and Le Pen and all the others will have a very different approach to the war, one of trying to seek an end to it. So with that, along with the split between the US and Trump, I think waiting another year or two could work in Putin's.
But it's not an option anymore. That's what all the experts on it are saying. It's right now, the West is is focusing all its efforts, all its energy, to building drones to shoot deep into Russia and to just damage the Russian economy. And factories throughout Europe just dedicated to this purpose. And it's going to work if Russia does nothing. So what you're advocating is no longer an option.
Advantage and try to get a conclusion by 2028. What do you think? That would be his best strategy in my view. What do you think?
Yeah, no, Russia's ramping up now. The pace of the offensive is going to increase and increase dramatically. The hesitancy in the past to target the sites in Kiev out of fear more for killing Westerners, that's now off the table. Westerners have been warned. Get out. If you remain, then pay your money, take your chances. And this basically is going to force the emptying of Kiev by Westerners, which means I think it's highly likely that Russia will make a move to retake Kiev. And once they retake Kiev, then I think they'll also make a move to retake Odessa. So, all these people saying, "Oh, Russia's running out of gas. Russia's got economic problem." Please, Russia.
Kiev is up here, and Odessa's down here. This is historic Ukraine, the real Ukraine. All this is some level of Russian. Odessa, founded by Catherine the Great. And if Russia takes Odessa, it cuts Ukraine off from the Black Sea. They're a landlocked country, a rump of a country, and they have no real future. And that is what you get when you're Ukraine and you just decide to fight to the bitter end against a foe you can never beat at win. And you anger that foe by shooting drones deep into Russia.
Right now, their cash flow is like it's never been before, thanks to the U.S. blockade and the oil shortage. So Russia's able to sell what it has, and free of sanctions. U.S. gave sanction relief because they need the oil out there on the market to try to at least keep up this artificial perception that oil's still in it's only $92 for futures. God Almighty! I mean, really, the 20% of the world oil supply is gone. It's no longer out there, and it's not like there are a bunch of ships sitting on the sea.
Wow, oil is down to $90 WTI, and Brent crude is 96.
Yeah, watch what happens by Friday. I think the odds are likely that it'll be climbing back up.
Watch what happens by tomorrow if all those planes do indeed bomb Iran.
Particularly if these airstrikes, escalate, which they likely will.
Well, Larry, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for jumping on. Enjoy our chats.
Sorry to be Debbie Downer, but
It's okay. Get used to it.
Yeah, well, it's just I give you my opinion, then ask you to look at some numbers, and then use your own logic and reasoning and say, okay, does that make sense? And right now, we've not seen any evidence of Donald Trump telling the Zionist lobby, "You're not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to tell you what to do."
That'll be one of the best things that could happen. Yeah, but you're right. The actions haven't followed. That'll be one of the most beautiful days in my political coverage career, or life, or whatever. So it'll be the day that I see any US president, Trump or otherwise, say America first, not whatever other country first, especially in this case, Israel. That'll be a beautiful day because there's just so much damage the US military and economy needs to work on, that they need to focus on. And that's what a lot of people, Trump supporters, and I remember I spoke to Tucker's brother a week ago. He articulated it really well. I'm seeing Tucker in 2 weeks' time in New York. In Maine, it's May. And I'll have a discussion with him on this to understand it better. But what his brother, Buck, told me is that the betrayals that voters knew that the US needs to focus on their own problems and stop worrying about foreign problems in Ukraine or in Iran or anywhere else. And then what happened when Trump took office is they're talking about Venezuela, they're talking about Cuba, they're talking about Nigeria,
Yes.
they're talking
Trump completely betrayed his voters on the international side of things.
about Ukraine, obviously they're talking about Iran, that came out of nowhere. All these were not meant to be America's problems. And the problems that the US is dealing with from an economic perspective, I have a lot of economists on board from the epidemic, the drug epidemic that is happening there. It's just heartbreaking, putting aside all the corruption and issues and the frauds that are being found. So
Right.
I really would love to see your country really focus on these for the sake of your allies like Australia, my country, and others. And we need to see the US do well again.
Yeah, but if Trump had focused on making America great again as opposed to making America the biggest bully again, that doesn't play well in the rest of the world. And it's also exposed, though, the weakness of the United States. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this has done huge damage to the U.S.'s reputation. U.S. losing to Iran, yeah. It's going to have impact for years to come. Well, I think that's enough for now. Unfortunately, I've just checked. No news of any airstrikes yet, but given the timing of these refueling jets taking off, the airstrikes might be happening in another hour or so. I'll cover that if it happens. But otherwise, why else would refueling aircrafts be flying towards Iran, if not to support strikes against Iran? 24 fighters. That's a lot of bombs. Oh boy. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you next video. Bye-bye.